So we've got this second clip where he's also making an argument. Let's actually look at what he's saying, okay?
Yeah.
So Jesus stopped so many things in the Old Testament. You don't want to accept that. That's your choice. For example, why his disciples never killed an apostate? Why his disciples never
They didn't have
waged
political power. As soon as Christians gained political power in the Roman Empire, they started doing these things. They didn't have the jurisdiction to do so.
They didn't kill
They were the
anybody.
minority. They weren't in power. As soon as Christians gained power within the Roman Empire, they applied the Old Testament laws, the New Testament laws.
not true.
It's codified in the canon law. Do you know? Are you familiar with the canon law?
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
So he's got literally
Yes.
no response.
He has no response.
As you can see, he's making this argument.
Yeah,
He's making this argument.
yeah.
Why did Jesus and his disciples not do anything? Why did
Yeah,
nothing happen,
yeah.
etc.? You're forgetting the history. It's as if you don't know the history. Jesus and his
Before we get-
disciples were not even in power.
Before we,
right?
this is a good point. Before we get to the history, I always find it so interesting, that when Christian people compare Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Jesus,
Yeah.
because Jesus for them is God.
Yes. Yes.
Muhammad for us is the final prophet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to be fair, why don't you compare Allah with Jesus? See, in their mind, it's almost as if they've humanized Jesus. It's like a tacit admission that Jesus is not actually a God. He must be compared man for man
Yeah. Yeah.
with Muhammad.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a tacit admission that, okay, here you've got Jesus the man versus Muhammad the man.
Yeah.
Let's compare both careers. But if you guys believe, as you do, that Jesus is God and is part of the Trinity and so on, then surely he should be compared with Allah, because we believe in Allah as our God. That's the first thing. The second thing is the point that Daniel made was actually a very powerful point. Because even if we do compare now,
Yes.
Jesus, the historical figure, the man, with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the main difference historically between the two is that one of them was given political power. He has political power. He's a statesman. And the other one, according to their narrative,
Their narrative, yeah.
is that he was humiliated and killed on a cross. So you can't say, well, actually, let's compare his behavior with his behavior, because then when I come back and say, well, in the book of Revelation, when he comes back, he's going to take vengeance.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to take vengeance.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
they would say no, but then what they would do is they do the shift. They say,
Yeah.
well, he was a god, so a god can take vengeance if he wants to.
Yeah.
So he becomes a god when he's taking vengeance,
Yes.
and he's a man when he's being humiliated.
It's very convenient.
It's all so there's no winning here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing, and then the argument here, which is that Daniel is making, and then they deny it. How could they deny it? Because it's very, very clear in historical record. If you know the early history of Christianity, anyone who's studied the early history of Christianity,
Yes.
okay, that they were first a persecuted minority, and then in 313, Christianity was made into, it was allowed, it was tolerated in the Roman Empire. And then when Constantine became
Yeah.
a Christian himself, he constituted it as the religion of the empire. And then after that, near the 5th century, like the end of the 4th century, you had Theodosius and stuff, which by force, he insisted on certain theological things. And if any, forget about pagans or something like that, some non-Christians, if you didn't believe in Nicene, Constantinople type Christianity, then you could be persecuted physically for that. And this is well known historical record. And then you have a bloody history of Christianity.
You have the Crusades.
You have the Crusades.
You have the Crusades. I mean, how can these people, how can
Yes.
Robert Spencer, okay, and Rashid Hamami sit there and speak as if they are ignorant? They're not ignorant, by the way, of the Crusades.
He's not ignorant, because I've seen what's his name, Robert Spencer, speak to Javad. I can't remember his surname. Hashmi, yes, and he had a debate with him.
Yeah.
And in that debate, he quoted, or he admitted that there have been people who have effectively who have been inspired by biblical verses to do violence. He admitted that point.
Yes.
So, because you have something called the papal bulls, and the papal bulls are they're authoritative, proclamations by the popes.
Yes.
Okay, and there were papal bulls from Urban II, as you know.
Yeah.
In 1095 in the First Crusade, when they came and they were reconquesting according to them.
I mean, the whole
Jerusalem.
initial concept of the Crusades
Yes.
were religiously motivated wars.
Yeah, justified.
Religiously
And
motivated.
you had other people bulls, by the
Right.
way. It's not just because all the things they mentioned in that thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Slavery, this, that, all that stuff, the machine gun tactics.
yes,
All of that, you have papal bulls. Like, for example, the papal bull of Nicholas V.
yes,
Now, the papal bull of Nicholas V justified or gave the religious justification for slavery.
yeah,
So all of these things having been said, you can't actually make an argument. And I was very frustrated. A lot of the Christians, some of them, and I'm going to challenge this now, some of the Christians were saying, well, Jake and Daniel didn't understand the Old Testament and didn't understand Christology. Actually, I think both of them understand Christianity more than most of the Christians do.
Yes.
They've studied it on an academic level.
Yeah.
And moreover, number two, this is the second point, if you really think about it, right, you've got Christianity that's being pushed here, which is that there's a new covenant and that there's no requirement for a law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what's being said. Yeah. So that Jesus, as he mentioned in the beginning, Rashid, he said that he stopped. He means to say he abrogated. He didn't want to say the word abrogate. He abrogated all that was required in the Old Testament, even though the exact opposite is mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm not here to do away with the law of the prophets. I've come to affirm them.
Yeah.
But put that to the side. If you look at it and the secondary source scholarly material, people like James Dunn, E.P. Sanders, others, like you can look at this in the scholarly works, non-Muslims have written about this.
Yeah.
The idea that actually it was Paul himself, who in the early Christianity changed Christianity in a manner that would make it seem as if all you need to do is believe in the crucifixion and resurrection, this story, and you can forego the Old Testament rules. Mm-hmm. This is not something which the early Christians believed. And the biggest tension that you can find in the Bible is between Paul and James. And people don't know who James is. James, according to the biblical narrative, is meant to be the brother of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Okay, brother how? Because they believe Joseph the carpenter had another, son, which is not through Mary. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of them do believe in perpetual virginity and stuff. I'm not going to get into the doctrine, but the idea is that they believe in James. Mm-hmm. Now, James, you can see a clear conflict between him and Paul, mm-hmm. and in that conflict, Paul is effectively trying to argue against the law, especially circumcision. The book of Acts, you can see. He's arguing against these kind of things, and Paul is saying, "Be with the Jew, be a Jew with the Jew, and a Gentile with the Gentiles. Mm-hmm. Be pragmatic." But the point is that there's nothing definitively to show in early Christianity that this movement away from the Old Testament laws was definitive as they want to make it out to be. Paul seems to be spearheading this process, and that is clearly in the historical record. Clearly, it's been mentioned by scholars of Christianity, non-Muslim scholars of Christianity. Even Martin Luther mentions it, and I can read quotations. I mean, maybe since we're doing this video, I'll read a quotation from Martin Luther, who's, as you know, we're talking about Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King. Martin Luther, the
who he's named after.
Martin Luther is in many ways, the one who started the Protestant Reformation. Mm-hmm. He says the following. He says, though this epistle of James was rejected by because someone will say, respond and say, well, James was rejected because it wasn't made into, and this is another question, who decides what books go into the Bible? I don't even want to go, Athanasius decided it wasn't through a council. Athanasius decided it, and what books go into the New Testament.
This is a whole other can of worms.
However, this is what Martin Luther is saying. He's saying, though this epistle of James was rejected by the ancients, I praise it and consider it a good book. To state my own opinion about it without prejudice to anyone, I do regard it as the writing of an apostle, and my reasons follow. In the first place, it's flatly against Paul and all the rest of Scripture in ascribing justification to works. In a word, he warned against those who relied on faith without works, but was unequal to task in spirit, though in words, thought, and words. Therefore, I will not have him in my Bible to be numbered among the true chief books, though I would not thereby prevent anyone from including or extolling him as he pleases, for there are otherwise many good sayings in him. So basically, note that he understands this idea of justification by faith, or sola fide, which was promoted in Christianity. This idea is a Pauline idea, okay, and this is something which is clear. Why then would we throw away the Old Testament and throw it on the bus? Even if by the way, let's not throw away the Old Testament by the bus. Let's just stick to the New Testament, because they made it seem as if
there's nothing in the New Testament.
There's nothing in the New Testament. So let me just read this. Imagine if this particular thing was in the Quran, okay? This is in the book of Luke.
Yeah.
And this is something which is meant to have said, Jesus has said, yeah? I have come to bring fire on earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and what constraint am I under it is completed. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? This is Jesus. No, I tell you, but division. For now there will be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Now, what are we talking about here? This is the New Testament. Don't make it as if the New Testament is a pacifist book. So the thing is this, is that they're coming across as if you've got violence. The whole argument against Islam is you've got violence. You've got violence in your books.
And this is your narrative, by the way. These aren't the things that we believe about Isa alayhi salam, about Jesus.
Yeah.
This is from your narrative. Yeah. Okay, of Jesus.
But the point they're making, which is that Islam is effectively not putting it this way, but it's as crude as to say, look, the reason why we're not Muslim is, well, the greatest challenge that we have against Islam is the sanctification of violence.
Yeah, they mentioned violence.
Okay, so what? So what? You're a Christian.
You're throwing stones from glass houses.
That's what it is.
That's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely shocking. And that's why initially in the beginning, I think it was a very good point that Daniel made. Who are we debating right now?
Exactly.
Who are we discussing with? Are we discussing with atheists?
Yes.
Because you're coming across as if you're none the wiser to these verses in the Bible.
Yeah.
You have no clue about these verses in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay? And both of you who put yourselves across as Christian representatives, as Christian essentially speakers, okay, public speakers representing the Christians, you don't know what's in the Bible. You don't know that you have these verses in the Bible.
And that was one of the main comments that people had, is that these guys could not defend the Bible.
Yeah,
bro. At one point,
you can't throw the Bible under the bus.
Not just the Bible, is they had insufficient knowledge of Christianity.
Yes.
Bro, Jake and Daniel had more knowledge of Christianity. And this is evidence in the fact that Jake was quizzing Robert Spencer, who's meant to be more knowledgeable in this matter, about the Trinity. And he said that, name me someone in the first 300 years that talks about Trinity, right? And by that, obviously, Jake means co-equal and co-eternal.
Yes.
3 persons of the Trinity, right?
Yes, and this is
then he mentioned Basil, who is one of the Cappadocian, like we're talking about what? At the time of the Cappadocian fathers, it's like late 300s.
Yeah.
That's not in the first 300 years.
Yeah.
That's after the fact. So you've given them a timeline of 300 years, and then you've given someone 400 years later. So, and so you're using him, okay? You're using him in order to make the point that all 3 persons of the Godhead are co-equal, co-eternal, which is exactly the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed, which is not what happened. And then he mentions, I don't know if it's Ignatius or one of the church fathers, all these church fathers that he's mentioned, all of them believed in subordinationism. All of them believed in subordinationism.
Yeah.
They believed that the Father was more powerful than the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So when it came to the key matters...
When did they become co-equal then?
Exactly.
You see,
that's the
when did they
point.
become
Co-equal.
Yeah.
So that when it came to the key tenets and the key creedal implications, there's no doubt in my mind. They tried to avoid that like a barge pole. They have to because they're weak here. They don't want to. If it was a proper debate about Christianity and Islam, why not debate Tawheed, Trinity, the divinity of... Look, there's 2 things that really separate Muslims and Christians.
Yes.
Number 1,
thank you.
the Trinity.
Yes.
The Trinity.
Yes.
All right. So the idea of, is Jesus God? This is, why don't we start with that? And then number 2, the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you resolve those areas, there's no difference between... You're talking about commonalities. If you resolve those 2 areas, there's no difference between Muslims and... Effectively, we believe in the same thing. If we resolve
the issue is the Trinity
and Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that's it. Then La ilaha illallah Rasulullah is complete. The point is you guys were too scared to engage with that. As soon as Jake started speaking about Trinity, he didn't want to engage.
Because you cannot. Because your belief and the modern day Christian belief that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are co-eternal.
Yes.
Okay, they've always all been there, and they are co-equal.
Yeah.
Okay, that they are equally God.
Yes.
Okay, this is nonsensical to the idea of monotheism.
Absolutely.
It is against monotheism.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and you cannot be, as Christians claim, you cannot claim to be a monotheist. Okay, and claim to and believe in this idea of the Trinity. It's like a square circle.
I think what you've done here is right. I think we've looked at some of the things.
Yeah.
This Rashid guy, honestly, he's ended his career before he could even start.
Yeah.
Why start in the English speaking language against people like Daniel Haqiqatjou and Jake Brancatella? Why would you start with the Muslim Mutafizio? He's one of the top guys. Why would you start? It's like going in a boxing ring, and the first fight you want to have is a title fight.
The issue is clearly
he got knocked out.
It's from an emotional...
No one wants you to ever represent them again. You are finished. You are finished. You're absolutely done. You can go back to speaking in the Arabic-speaking world, where a few Copts will clap for you in the Arabic-speaking world. Even they don't like you. But it's done now for you in the English-speaking world. You've been vomited out very, very quickly. We don't like it. The Christians don't like it. The English don't like it. The Americans don't like it. Even the Moroccans don't like it. I mean, your own people don't like it. You humiliated yourself and your nation. SubhanAllah, Allah sent Jake.
I mean, no, his nation is free from him.
Let's
be honest,
of course.
his nation is free from
Allah
him.
sent Jake. This is an
amazing point, by the way.
Allah sent Jake
Yeah.
to show, because Morocco is one of the best, for me, it's one of the most beautiful countries to go to. The
course,
people are
yeah.
fantastic, the people are excellent, the culture is brilliant.
You have a river.
And they're very tolerant people.
You have it's amazing, because if you were to look at him,
SubhanAllah.
someone who's got the Arabic language, someone who can speak
And he was
Arabic,
trying to attack
etc.
him about what do you call it,
The
what he's
clothing,
wearing.
The clothing. Let's do a poll in Morocco,
Yeah.
and let's see what the Moroccans have to say about this.
And the guy's wearing a suit.
Yeah, I mean,
He's wearing a suit, and he's talking about why is he wearing this is Moroccan clothes? Why are you wearing my clothes? Like, who are you? You're in his country, bruv. You are in his country. What are you talking about, man? Be quiet. You should be counting your lucky stars.
This, and I think we should end on this.
Yeah.
This reminds of an ayah of the Quran. بل كذبوا بالحق لما جاءهم
Yeah.
فهم في أمر مريج. They denied, they turned away, they disbelieved in the truth when it came to them, so they are in a confused state.
They are confused.
They are confused.
They're confused.
Jazakumullahu khairan for watching. We'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.